Hi, I'm B from Nectar Mechanics, and it's time for part 3 of 3D printing Laserbeak. So, where we left off last video was it was all sanded and filled with the wood filler and everything, so I was ready for painting. I did need to do a couple of little extra bits of sanding just to make sure it all fit properly and nicely, but once I'd done that, it was time to hot glue it all to matchsticks and stick it in the foam block. I do this so it's easier to spray the primer on. Not having to use my fingers and smudging it or getting in the way just makes life so much easier. Once it was primed, I get to take it all off of the matchsticks and start getting it painted. I'm going for my own custom color scheme here. It's mainly inspired off of the box art colors with a little bit of the cartoon, but then also for the cassette tape mode especially, I'm going off of his WIP Academy appearance. A lot of Laserbeak's tape modes look kind of like some sort of weird cartoony version or a bit different detailed. WIP Academy is the only one that actually looks like a real cassette tape. I did lots and lots of layers, and I was also using washer tape, which doesn't stick particularly well, as masking tape. It's cheaper, and it still gets the job done. Most of the parts I had separated by color, so for instance, the yellow beak is a separate piece to the black head, so that afterwards, once it's all painted separately, I can glue it together and have clean lines. But for some bits like the wings, where I wanted him to have silver stripes on a red base, it was going to be too weak if I did that. So that's where the masking tape came in handy. Now the first coats of paint are always terrifying because they're often quite splotchy and they don't look very good, and you're always sat there like, oh god, what have I done? But it's fine, you just gotta push through it, and I did, and it was starting to look really nice. Now one thing I thought of is, oftentimes cassette tapes will have like a sticker or a label on the front of them. So to do that, I found a template online, and I imported it into Procreate. Then I could create simple colors and strips like that, print it out on sticker vinyl, cut it out again, and then stick it to the print while it was sort of half assembled. Then I could use my knife and cut it so that it matched all of the pieces. So, while I'm waiting for layers of paint to dry and whatnot, let's talk about the actual tape mechanic side of this. Now, I've talked about this in the other videos, but my goal is for it to actually play tape. And to do this, I'm going to be cannibalizing a pre-existing cassette tape. The only problem with this is that the only tapes you can really find that are cheap enough to just dismantle is from op shops. And they usually have not particularly great music on them. And I figured if I'm doing a Transformer cassette tape, I kind of need the Transformers music. Thankfully, there's an easy trick to do this. You either put sellotape over the top of the holes on the cassette tape, or you get one that's designed to be recorded that has tabs in it. My one had tabs, so I didn't need to fiddle with the sellotape, and I took it to my local makerspace to get it recorded over, because they have cassette tapes that can record. The only problem is, both cassette decks were broken. And eventually it turned out that one of the people there has his own cassette deck at home, and he was more than happy to record it for me. So thank you very much. So, we've done plenty of painting, and we've got the music that we need. It is now time for the assembly. But before we assemble the print, we need to do the surgery on the tape to extract it. And this is nerve-wracking, because if I fuck this up, I don't have a tape. Nothing to it but to try it, right? Here we go. We're gonna do this, we're gonna record this in real time. We're gonna record this in real time and edit it together. We now have to play the song to the end. We have to figure out how much tape is in that song, right? So let's just play it. There we go. Okay. Yep. That right there is how much tape we need on that right-hand side. The left-hand side, all of this chunkless tape that you can see here, we don't need that. Ah, the screwdriver I used to destroy everything is actually useful in this scenario. Oh god. Okay. This is where it all goes wrong. I need my knife, and I yeeted my knife. Fuck did you go? Ah, there you are. Scalpel. I feel like a surgeon. Woo! Holy shit, I'm gonna fucking break it. Woo! Okay, let's see. You. I've run into my first problem, and it's an easy one. I need to replace the plastic pins with metal pins. Super glue has been acquired. Now we just gotta hope it stays like that. Oh, it wasn't even in camera. Pins extracted. gonna set those off to one side. I still need to actually extract the tape. It's got a film on it that I didn't account for. I hope that's not important. Right, so that's the touch. Ah, fuck, my scissors are blunt. Okay, I cut the tape. There is no going back now. This is exciting and terrifying at the same time, and I'm so sorry for the noises I'm making. Pencil. Pencil. I got it. I'm sorry. I'm getting more deranged the more I do this. It's my ultimate surgery tool. You know what? Pliers would be better. Now I'm remembering why I don't try and play Operation. Okay, now for the entire rest of Transformers the movie, the soundtrack. Okay, the tape is stuck to the tape. That's what we wanted, that's good. That's not good. You imagine you're getting an operation and the doctor just flings his scalpel across the room. It's like, whoops, my bad. So, what I need to do is I need to take this and I need to wind it up without getting my grubby mittens on it. So, this is really dumb, but it might work. What I have here is a milk cap sandwiched between two awfully cut pieces of cardboard. And the idea is that I will tape this bit of tape to the spool, put it in the machine, whiz it around, and it will wind itself up for me without me having to do it by hand. I have no idea if this is going to work. I have no idea if this is going to make it worse, but we're going to try it. Okay, I have rewound the tape. I have gotten my tool stuck. Uh-oh. Now I need to figure out which of these spool holders spins. It's that one. Alright, stupid dumb idea. Test number 1. It might work. Take 3. Remember to only hit the fast forward button. Well, we're gonna be here a while. Okay. It's worked. I am literally just gonna do that. And I gotta line at it. Very carefully. Here we go. I'm putting it back how it was. Now I know this is going to sound like garbage, the actual tape itself. I mean, I got my finger oils on it, stuff like that. It's not great, but if it works, this is going to be fucking cool. Okay. Okay, so now, yep. That's a usable spool. Oh, that took me so long. Please ignore that dying monster in the corner. So that was about the most stressful 4 hours of my life. Then once I've done that, I could start supergluing and assembling the actual print. I'm using mainly pins for this. There's a couple screws that were like coincidentally the same millimeter as the stuff I was using with pins. So they got used on the wings that needed a bit more strength. But for the pins, they had a layer of super glue put on them to make them slightly thicker, and that way they're not as loose. I also found that for joints that were loose, you could just add a layer of super glue on the sides where you're not really going to see it, and it adds just a fraction of a millimeter of thickness, so that way it keeps the friction and doesn't flop around. Once that was done, super glue it all shut and try and test play. And it didn't work first try, obviously. One thing that hadn't occurred to me is that the spools that hold the tape are held by 2 little rings of plastic on the 3D print, right? And I hadn't sanded those for some reason. So I had to go and sand those again so that they're actually loose enough to spin. Then there was a second problem. Normal cassette tapes are made of only 2 halves, an A side and a B side. That means that they are always at the same tension that they need to be because it's also injection molded plastic, so it's stronger than a 3D print. The problem with mine is that while it's an A side and a B side, it's also cut up into individual sections. And because the wings are what was holding the actual spool, they were actually warping slightly with the 3D print plastic. And what this meant is that sometimes they would just slide right out. There was nothing keeping them in if they're bending just enough. So I had to add thin layers of super glue and wood filler and stuff to try and thicken those slightly, but not too much or it won't spin. Then I had to sand it more, not too much or it would be too loose, and it was a constant battle. But after 2 days of troubleshooting, I also found out that it was his butt that was the problem. See, he's got these essentially windows or doors on his back that sort of cover his back but need to open for the head to go through when he transforms. And because of that, he needs a slight bump so that the pin can actually be super glued and go through it or whatever. And that 2mm bump was just enough to get caught on the tape and stop it from spinning properly. But then it also turns out I put slightly too much spool in the actual model, so that means that it's getting caught on his bird head in the middle. And so, after all of this troubleshooting, all of this fiddling, I finally got it to play. That right there, it plays. Sorta. What I've conveniently cut out right the last second is that it ends up getting caught. God dang it. So where next? Well, my hope was that this model would be the first and last model that I'd need to do, right? I got it done nearly first try. But there's enough problems here that I feel it's worth trying to do a version 2. And this really upset me, right? I was 90% there on my first go and I was so upset. And then my dad turned around to me and said, "You don't need to be upset. Why are you getting hung up on only that 10%? And I think he's right about that. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to take a break for a couple weeks or so from this project. I'm not going to stop doing videos. I'm going to do different projects, clear my brain, and then go back to it with fresh eyes. I have made a list of all the things that I'm thinking of changing and doing for a Mark II, because if I'm going to do a version 2, I might as well go all in, right? So, yeah, it's a mixed bag of, I was so close, but also, I was so close first try. There are some unfortunate things I'm going to have to do, like I'm going to have to cut out even more of the tape, but if it could just play start to end, one song, without flipping over, without breaking itself, without getting stuck, I'm gonna be happy. And I'm already really happy with this. So yeah, not bad for my first go. So make sure to stay tuned for version 2 of Laserbeak, and I'm gonna have some fun other projects coming along as well. I'll see you next week. Farewell! That sounds about normal. You